Welcome back to Mountain Jim Card Collectibles. We had a great week so far now that Friday's here. It's always awesome to be going into the weekend. But, I've noticed a few videos this past week, from creators I've watched. And, one of the striking videos I saw recently comes from Neo, where he's talking about how he got priced out of Topps Chrome Sapphire Marvel. And if you have been priced out of this market as well, there's a reason for it. And a lot of people don't want to really see it for what it truly is. But I think in the back of your mind, you honestly know what you're dealing with. And they always like to hype up, hey, this hobby's blowing up. This hobby's blowing up. Well, the issue I have with that statement is who is it blowing up for? The breakers? The wealthy people at the top? Because, if you're at the bottom part of this hobby, it doesn't really feel like it's blowing up, It feels like the way it's been for a while. And I wish it'd get back to the way things used to be, where you don't have to be a breaking company to rip open new product. So anyway, I know there's a lot of big sports card gurus, influencers, on YouTube, and they tend to gaslight everyone about the hobby. And I wish they'd stop gaslighting you, meaning, you should feel good about your position on the totem pole. But let's face it, the totem pole is based upon trickle-down economics currently for the hobby. You can't say it's not. So this is just a Google AI overview. I don't know if you were around during the Reagan era. That's when I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I'd prefer to be back in this era to an extent. I'd probably prefer to have Ronald Reagan as a president to an extent. Why? Well, he's a lot more moderate than our current president. I prefer being a moderate over radicals. But face it, I just don't like any political party in the USA. So I'm putting that out there. I'm the guy that wants to put both political parties down an alligator or Alcatraz. All members, independents as well. I just don't like politicians. And this is a reason I don't like politicians. Trickle-down economics. Trickle-down economics describes the policies of Ronald Reagan's administration, or Reaganomics, which involved tax cuts and deregulation for corporations and the wealthy. That's what's going on now, currently. But like on steroids, with the theory that the benefits, jobs, and investment would then trickle down to the middle and lower classes. This approach is a form of supply-side economics. Now think about that term, supply-side economics, because that's really what you are involved in the sports card hobby currently. While supporters point to economic growth and the end of stagflation, critics highlight increased income equality, a rising national debt, and claims that the intended, looks like I'm missing a word there, benefits did not materialize for the broader population. And that's true. And what is Reaganomics? What is trickle-down economics? It's gaslighting. And I know that maybe you're getting tired of that term, gaslighting. But the more you become, aware of what gaslighting truly is, you see it, just flowing out like raw sewage from everywhere, whether it's the government, whether it's a big corporation, whether it's our fellow big name, YouTube gurus. Basically, when you get into this hobby, they're basically telling you, go sit at the kids' table, smile, and be happy about it. But are you really happy about our trickle-down economics within, the realm of sports cards? I'm not. I grew up during the 80s and 90s when I could, sit at the grown-ups table and eat what they're eating. Unfortunately, we now live in an age where, if you don't have thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to spend on boxes or the hobby itself, you're basically forced down to sit at the kids' table. Now, how does the trickle-down economic theory work in sports cards? Well, if you're new to sports cards, which I'm glad you are, if you're watching this, I'm always happy to be talking to new people who have entered the hobby. Anyway, this is how the hobby basically works currently, and, a lot of people know this. It starts out with these big, expensive boxes that, most normal people, families, can't afford, on, just normal middle-class wages. And so what happens in our trickle-down economic theory is we go from that point to this point, the sports card breakers. Now, if you haven't caught on yet, if you want to sit and open a lot of products, obviously you're going to have to start a breaking company. But the way that trickle-down economics works is, okay, so it starts with the big corporation asking, quite a bit of money out the gate, whatever, or, very limited supply to where maybe Topps is selling the boxes affordably, but the breakers get it, or whoever else gets it at that point. They mark it up to a price that's just unaffordable for, most common people in the sports card hobby. It then gets ripped open, and then we enter the next form of the trickle-down economic theory, supply-side economics of the hobby. And what part is that? Repacks. And to me, repacks are one of the ugliest pieces of the hobby at this time and place. Why is that? Because this truly is trickle-down economics. You're just getting the breadcrumbs at this point. We know that, the breakers are going to take the best of the best. They have to, start to turn around their money because with all the losses. And that's when you're expected to, step up, spend your money, and be happy about it. Be happy about trickle-down economics. But I'm not happy about it at all. I should be able to just purchase a box like I used to in the 80s or 90s, not even think twice about it, Be able to rip it open. Maybe I lost, maybe I won, maybe I got some hits, but it shouldn't be, up to a breaking company to rip open products. And we're just dealing with all the breadcrumbs, in that process. And you can watch YouTube guru after YouTube guru. They know it all, but the ones with all the views. And they'll say it over and over again. Just go and pick up the singles, that you can find, whatever. The end cycle of the breadcrumbs. Whether these are graded, whether they're raw. Be happy with your position on the totem pole, even though you're at the very bottom of the totem pole, in this hobby. You're at the very bottom of the trickle-down economic theory. You are the loser of supply-side economics. Smile and be happy so you watch the channel every day so they can continue to get their YouTube monetization. And that, to me, is YouTube, the trickle-down economic theory, all wrapped up into one, isn't it? And the whole time, you're going to get gaslighted to, hey, this is your part, Really? This is your part, huh? The very, very bottom rung of trickle-down economics. You can come in and then we get, with all the fake cards or else all the ripped open slabs that, you have cards changed out, whatever. This is your part of the hobby. Well, I would prefer to sit at the grown-ups table myself. I'd prefer to be able to, go into a hobby where I don't have to form a breaking company, and rip boxes and take the losing cards and shill them out, as repacks and, maybe put one card. Oh, there's a good card in our repacks. What a joke. And so to an extent, when you look at this hobby, this is a good taste of Reaganomics on steroids now, isn't it? I mean, if you grew up in the 80s, we got gaslighted from, the Reagan family. Don't pretend we didn't, when they were up in the White House, wealthy acolytes living it up. Everyone else is just getting, breadcrumbs. But this hobby has really taken, Reaganomics to a new level. You know what I mean? And if you enter it, I just hope that you understand your position in the hobby. If you don't own a braking company, you more than likely can't enjoy this hobby for what it is. It's almost like, oh, you want to rip boxes? Oh, well, you got to start a braking company. You got to have a lot of cameras on you all the time. Every time you hit a mid to decent card, you have to act like it's the greatest thing that's ever landed on planet Earth, and then the other side as well, all the losing cards that you rip out of the boxes, we have to get them graded, or maybe not graded, whatever. We have to turn around those cards, and repacks. And then, those repacks, we can open them and take the best of the best out of there, and then sell the singles on eBay for the people who are eating, the crumbs of the crumbs, basically. Welcome to the hobby. Isn't it fun? And the sad thing is, the saddest thing is that, I have been involved in other hobbies in my lifetime. I've done other things, If you were a fisherman, you're not going to be dealing with supply side economics. If you were going hunting, you're not good luck getting onto, good private land, especially up here in Montana, but you're still not dealing with this just nasty totem pole that the sports card hobby, is currently based on, I always used to paint. I'd have stuff in paint galleries, art galleries. Once again, you don't have to deal with supply side economics, trickle down economic theory, And to me, like I said earlier, if you're new to this hobby, I'm glad that you are new to this hobby. I'm glad you came in. I feel like it's the wrong time. And why do I feel like it's the wrong time? I said earlier, because you're going to be forced to sit at the kids' table. Now, all those braking companies, all these wealthy people, all these wealthy companies that like to purchase sports cards and resell them for big dollars, they're sitting up at the adult table. The problem is people like you and me, we were always allowed to sit at the adults table throughout the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, almost pretty much all this time prior to around 2020 and the pandemic. If we could leave these big monopolies like Fanatics, Topps out of this, Panini, get some smaller companies run the show, make it so the sports leagues aren't so greedy, so that they're always creating these monopolies that really push this trickle down economic theory on you in the hobby. This hobby would be so much more fun. But unfortunately, you basically have to open up and say and get spooned whatever they spoon you. And so if you're new to the hobby, I feel bad for you because you never really had an opportunity to sit at the grown-ups table. I'm guessing if you're rolling in to this hobby, you've probably heard it from other, sports card gurus on YouTube. Just go buy singles on eBay, yeah. Buy the crumbs of the crumbs. Get into the scams, whatever, and I know that they sell big slab, singles, whatever, but those are typically high dollar slabs. But when I say the crumbs, I'm guessing, ungraded cards, typically not autographs of big name players. The crumbs of the crumbs, the very bottom of trickle down economic theory, So anyway, I'd like to thank my subscribers, my new subscribers, especially my new subscribers because you're awesome. And my overall subscriber base, you're the reason I keep doing this. And if you haven't hit the subscribe button, it's 100% free. Anyway, it can help keep this channel going. I hope you have a great weekend. I'm out of here. And tune in again for the next episode of Mountain Gym Card Collectibles. Bye.